Second part of our presentation for you this evening is to just give you a little bit of an insight into some of the opening days. Those opening days go back to when our new teachers arrived and had 4 or 5 days of in-service, and then 4 days of in-service for our teachers before we even arrived at August 31st, and then taking you just through some of the activities over these last 4 days as well. So my colleague, Jen Saksa, who always does a great job sharing the exciting things happening across the district with us, will do so again tonight. So Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rushi. It is my pleasure tonight to share with everyone a review of our opening activities, something we do every year. A little different this year, but we do like to review that information with everyone. So it is an unusual start to the year, but there was no lack of enthusiasm coming from our teachers, students, and administrators. As you can see from the pictures here, our last days of summer were filled with activities such as creating Bitmoji classroom images like Miss Minnie's that you see here, celebrating the start of the year with a dance party like Mrs. McGilvery and her daughter Molly, visiting Chatham Park neighborhood entrepreneurs like Dr. Whitehead did, and filming PE lessons around Havertown. You may have seen them doing this, like our elementary health and phys ed teachers were, as well as practicing marching band in a socially distant manner and setting up at-home classrooms like the Haverford online teacher, Mrs. Marklands, that you see here, as well as mapping out the neighborhood bike rides that you can see on our bottom left corner there. Mr. Horan and Mr. Crater took to go around the neighborhoods and say hello to our middle school students. Our first official teacher activity, as Dr. Rushi mentioned, is our Induction Orientation. And this is where we welcome new educators to our district. As you can see from the list here, our newly hired staff have a variety of experience levels and will be fulfilling many roles here in Haverford, including long-term substitutes, classroom and unified arts or specials teachers, nurses, and special education teachers. We enjoyed 3 full days of induction this year and kicked it off with a Zoom meeting welcome that included introductions. Coming to a new district can cause anyone to have first day jitters, especially when your very first meeting of everyone is virtual. So we spend some time each day on community building activities. So this would help us to not only get to know each other, but also to inspire some ideas for how to conduct such activities with students once the school year began. Our first icebreaker question, you may want to ask this of yourself here, is in what TV show, book, or movie would you want to live? And so we asked folks to put that in the chat if they were comfortable, and they did, and they talked to each other with their answers. A couple of Parks and Recreation, if you're wondering, a couple of Seinfelds, a couple of Friends. I think Friends maybe had the biggest incidents, and a few folks who chose the Lord of the Rings movies. After our initial introductions of the directors, principals, and coordinators, Dr. Rushi then kicked off our activities with a presentation that was really designed to focus our thinking on teaching and learning. We were pleased, as usual, to have Mike Mullen as an integral part of our day, joining the human resources introductions, as well as the common sense planning presentation with Dr. Rushi. HTEA was also kind enough to host a welcome lunch and learn for our new educators. Also, our pupil services department reviewed important procedures as well as several policies, and our building principals and assigned mentors met with inductees to welcome them and begin getting them acclimated to the building's procedures. And that was all just day 1. So on days 2 and 3, our participants continued their community building, learned more about technology, and focused on relationships with an introduction to responsive classroom, as well as to our basis work or belonging and sociocultural identities in schools. Our final day included time to get to know what we call the elements of effective lessons that we use as a part of our daily teaching and learning, as well as an opportunity to find out more about the curriculum resources and professional development that will be available throughout the school year. Immediately following our induction orientation, all staff returned for the start of the school year, and this began with 4 days of professional learning. Okay, but before I describe that work, let's take a quick stretch break. So pick one of these that you see here and decide to do it on your own. Anyone who sits at a desk for any period of time, for example, the length of a school board meeting perhaps, knows how important it is to take a moment to stretch it out. So we are encouraging teachers and students to do things like these stretches throughout their time, whether it's during the meeting or whether it's standing up in between classes, as Katie mentioned earlier today. So I'll give you a minute, take a second, do a stretch, pick one. I'll do a couple. Okay, so let's get back to our opening days there. We began our professional development with what are called flex days. These are days that are designed to allow staff flexibility in when they complete the learning activities. So this year, teachers could choose to complete the work over the summer or during our 2 flex days, which were August 25th and 26th. The activities themselves were designed to support teaching and learning in an online environment. Teachers engaged in a Canvas course that covered all of the topics that you see listed here, including lesson design, building community and active engagement. Teachers were encouraged to actually choose the modules that they felt were the most relevant to their work. In addition to that Canvas course, our very own Dr. Jeremy Tomaszewski, who you may remember from our July board presentation, created a Canvas how-to course that teachers participated in also as a part of Flex. This course was separated by comfort level with items for beginning, intermediate, and advanced Canvas users. The modules included all of the items you see here, and believe it or not, even more. Reading through this list will give you a sense of the many new uses for technology that our teachers have learned and are still learning in order to ensure that students have access to their curriculum and their resources all from one place. Since March 19th, it's interesting to think back to that time period. Since then, our teachers have experienced at least 38 hours of professional learning focused on teaching and learning in a hybrid as well as a virtual environment. As with any new practice, we will need to build on what we've learned through gaining actual experiences of working with children in this manner, and then continuing our professional development throughout the year. We also had a dedicated team of teachers work throughout the summer to create what are called common courses that could be shared with all teachers. These included building frameworks for the course, creating actual lessons, including resources in the lesson, recording videos, and much more. I'd like to also just take a moment to thank Erin Smith-Dels and April Wolf, who created a responsive classroom first 6 weeks Canvas course with ideas and resources for teachers to use as they employ the responsive classroom framework in a completely online environment to start the year. If you're wondering how we possibly got all of this done over the summer and through the opening days, there are some very important folks to thank listed here. Our instructional technology mentors, who are teachers, have taken on the additional responsibility of staying one step ahead of everyone in learning Canvas and our other web tools. They worked over the summer to not only learn these things, but also to create courses, to provide support, to provide tutorial sessions and additional training and all kinds of help for teachers and administrators as we all got to know Canvas. And I cannot overstate the positive influence that the people you see listed here have had on all of us and our ability to efficiently and effectively use any of the new technology. So thank you to our instructional technology mentors. So after our first 2 Flex days, we welcomed our staff back as we began our live professional development sessions, which began with our principals conducting some building professional development and modeling lots of great Zoom meeting strategies. I learned a lot by attending those sessions. Then educators spent time reading about and planning for how they will create community and build relationships online. Our professional learning communities, which are groups of teachers that teach similar subjects, they met to review the courses that had been developed this summer, and then everyone got to work on what we called our tech to-do lists, which helped us ensure that everybody was prepared for the very first days of school. On our final day, we had lots of training in new technologies, as you can see listed here. We also had more time to collaborate with colleagues and with our departments, as well as with our grade partners as we prepared for those first student days. And none of this would have been possible without our amazing technology department. This group worked nonstop to ensure that our teachers and students had the devices, access, logins, and information that they needed to start the year off on the best foot possible. As you can see, there have been thousands of interactions using technology. With 6,700 devices distributed and 7,300 plus Canvas users, our tech department is not only working for that, but also supporting us as we use Zoom, including what could be a Haverford record of 1,600 participants in the middle school's opening day meeting. Quite a feat. Mr. Haran and administrators as well as teachers hosting that. Welcome to all of our middle school students. The graph that you see here comes from an analytics system called Lightspeed that provides us with information about the actual use of our devices. And we're happy to see that during school hours, we're at almost 100% usage. And we're also happy to see that students are stepping away from the devices at the end of the day and disconnecting, as we know that they need to do. We just want to take a moment in this presentation to once again publicly express our thanks to the folks in the technology department for everything they have been doing and will continue to do to support our community, families, students, and teachers. Okay, so how were the first student days? We were excited that much of the first day feedback was positive. We were also, of course, hearing about areas where we will need to grow and improve. Throughout the week, we have continued to field questions regarding logins, devices, access, where to find various links and resources. And as Dr. Rushi mentioned, and as we heard at the beginning of the meeting, we have heard from families of our youngest students and those who have greater academic needs about the challenges that are presented by this format. And I'd just like to reiterate here that we have, as we heard Dr. Rushi say earlier, it is our goal to return these students to more in-person programming just as soon as we are allowed to do so and can do so safely. In addition to learning about where students are struggling, we also did receive some positive messages like the ones that you see here. Our principals continue to receive positive messages as well from members of their school communities. And maybe you saw it. One of our families was actually has children at all 3 levels and was featured on Fox 29 as they kicked off the second day of school on Tuesday. So here are just a few pictures if you're wondering what it's looked like. These are our teams interacting with students, families, and each other. Some teachers did choose to work from their classrooms, and our administrators and building staff were at the ready in these buildings to support the students, families, and teachers throughout the day. Just another set of pictures here where you'll see our elementary and middle school preparing for materials pickup, as is our high school. And we did have some do a drive-by pickup this week, and others are planning to do that next week or the week following. Of course, we have to mention that we remain grateful to our amazing transportation department, as well as our facilities and maintenance teams who have been working all summer to be sure that the buildings are ready for us. Also pictured here, you see our middle school English class being taught from the building, as well as a really lovely welcome message that greeted some of our Haverford Online elementary teachers who were completing home visits to the folks who were interested in having the teachers stop by and meet their children in person. Someone was nice enough to make a sidewalk chalk message of welcome to them. And the Zoom screen that you see there is the students completing a scavenger hunt, probably similar to the one that Katie described at the beginning of our meeting. So in conclusion, we would like to thank all of the people who are in our community, all the people here listening. Our deep appreciation goes to our students, to their families, their parents and guardians, to our community, as well as to this board. And of course, to each member of our staff who worked tirelessly to ensure that the students are cared for and included in our school community on the first days and every day. Our goal is always continuous improvement, so we will take any success that we've had and work to improve upon it, as well as learn from the struggles and work to improve upon them as well. So thank you for this opportunity to share what the opening days of school have been like this year.
Thank you, Jen. Sounds great. And I think the board collectively sends a big thank you to all the staff members for all the good work, all the hard work over the summer. And again, all things considered, a pretty darn good opening of school. Do you have any questions from the board? Bridget?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. A lot of good work going on. For folks who are watching who just got through the first 4 days of school and the kind of adjustments and kind of figuring things out, do you have a sense of how things might be changing even next week in terms of the amount of time on Zoom or the way that the classes are kind of managed and handled, especially at the elementary level? Like I think one thing we heard, there was a lot of Zoom time, maybe taking people by surprise, especially for the youngest learners. But I guess I'm curious if that was maybe just to kind of get started and people could expect things to change over the next couple of weeks.
I have been engaged in conversation with folks around curriculum, talking specifically about limiting Zoom time to the minutes that we had cited at a previous meeting. So what are we going to prioritize for the live time if I've only got 30 minutes in English language arts at the elementary level? So it is absolutely something that is on the minds of teachers. And I do think, although I was not in every class, I do think the tendency with community building activities is that they do stretch, right? To make sure every kid gets to say what they should, or that, it doesn't go this way, you went this way instead. But when it comes to looking at the actual delivery of curriculum, that will be very intentional, and teachers are very aware of the promises that we have made and what we've asked parents to expect when it comes to the live time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, my experience in our household was a good start to the first 4 days. And I know that after all of the planning and thinking and anticipation, it's just 4 days. So we need to kind of let this evolve and settle in. So it's nice to hear how that feedback or that kind of recalibration is something that people should expect to see as we get a little more experience. Thank you.
Next up, Laura.
So Bridget took my question, which was about Zoom time. I have some Zoom fatigue myself, so I'm sympathetic to everybody, teachers and parents.
Sure.
So thank you for answering that. And my other question was just about Canvas. How are people feeling? How are teachers feeling? How are parents and students feeling about the rollout of Canvas? And then also, has that made less work for all of our tech support?
So I think, as with anything, you're going to get a variety of responses to that. We certainly have students who are telling us it's working, it's doing exactly what you expect it to. We have other places where it's still something new to get to know. As of right now, I'm sure Sarah's probably buzzing in my ear. It is not less work right now for our technology department.
I hear that.
However, the goal is that it will be less work because we are really centralizing a lot of our platforms, even using things like Clever to have fewer sign-ins. So after the initial, hill to get over when it comes to getting to know the new systems, helping people get acclimated to the new systems, it will be more efficient. Right now, there's a big startup effort that needs to conclude before we get to that smoother sailing, I think.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was hopeful that at least just having one platform might make things easier instead of having to deal with any kind of glitches across multiple platforms or something. So okay,
Exactly.
Well,
Right.
good. So good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Antoinette?
Yeah. Thank you, Jen, for this update. I think, the way you're presenting it and just my personal experience in my household, the first week went really well. And so I think, I can empathize with folks who have this Zoom fatigue and, saying like there's a lot of screen time. But on the other hand, I think that this structure of having, synchronous classes at a certain time every day, I've heard positive feedback. I've seen folks that really like it. I know that, like I said, personally in my elementary school household, things have worked out really well. And so it kind of gives me a concern about when we move to hybrid, which I know has also been a really big discussion of tonight and in the community, getting our kids into more in-person learning as soon as possible. But in that hybrid model, the virtual days, at least 2 of the virtual days will be asynchronous, right?
We're looking at several models, and it will be a combination of asynchronous, but we certainly are not eliminating the possibility of synchronous on those days.
Okay, yeah, because I think the more the district can look at that, and the difference between the spring being almost 100% asynchronous, and even just these 4 days of having these live classes, the interaction between the students, and the interaction, where the students really feel like they're getting to know new teachers, has just been so valuable. And so I would hate to, I think everyone wants to move back to in-person as much as possible, but I would hate to lose that all the way on those virtual days. And so I appreciate you saying that the district is looking into that as much as possible. And I would also just ask the district to look into, for those Fridays where everyone is virtually learning, to have it be similar to what it is in this virtual learning environment. Because like I said, I think in lieu of having something more asynchronous, it seems more valuable. And obviously, the feedback from the teachers and from other students as well, but to at least look into doing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next up, Ari. Are you there? Okay. Ari has his hand up, but I'm not hearing him. Kristen, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So Jen, thanks for sharing all of this, and thank you to our teachers and administrators for all their hard work. This is obviously no easy task. I did want to ask about our K-2 families and Canvas and how that's been going. I've heard some, feedback from friends who have children in those grade levels and just some of the challenges they've faced. And I know this is a learning curve. Obviously, this is their first week engaging with the platform. Is there any feedback that you've gotten, your team has gotten, or how K-2 is getting, more supports, maybe working with Canvas?
Yeah, sure. We've actually been talking since before you started using Canvas with the teachers about what they feel like they can use as Canvas for our kindergarten teachers, for example. And this week was really supposed to be a little bit more about using Zoom and not necessarily having to navigate Canvas other than getting to know it. And I think, it's so important for us to have that experience of working with children and finding out that, oh, actually, we have to step back to how do you open a window, right? Or where's the tab first? And then forget Canvas. Let's work on little steps at a time. So I don't personally have enough information yet about the actual use of Canvas because it has not been as widely implemented yet in the K-2. I think we'll have a lot better information at the conclusion of next week when we might have students actually needing to access some things using Canvas, and we can hear the degree to which that was successful, or if there are other approaches that we need to use for students at that age group.
Okay. I'm glad it's on the radar, so thank you.
Sure.
Bridget?
I'm just curious if there's any data yet about how successful we've been in using the virtual platform to reach all of our students. Is there an issue that, maybe some kids just haven't been able to connect at all, or we're trying to address any internet connectivity issues that could help facilitate those kids getting into the program?
Sarah, you're welcome to jump in here. I'll share what I know about that. I have not been made aware of any technical issues that have prevented large groups of students from accessing. We have certainly been fielding you know, I'm in the waiting room, I can't get in touch with anyone. How do I get into the Zoom? Or my link's not working, or my login for Canvas didn't work. So on an individual level, you know, my sound's not working, even though everybody else's sound is working. What's happening? There are things that are happening like that. That would be the beginning of any, you know, rollout of any use of devices. But we are able to, and the teachers are able to I get a report at the end of every day of everybody who accepted a course. And when I log in, anybody who's in my course, I can see how many hours or minutes they've spent in my course. So literally every time you go to Canvas, you get to see, I mean, it's just like on your homepage, you get to see how kids are accessing it. So I imagine that teachers will be using that even more as we are regularly using Canvas beginning next week. But so far we haven't had any large scale, I can't access Canvas or I can't use Zoom or anything like that.
And I'll just jump in and say, in an attempt to over communicate, I just want to say I think the teachers and the principals are doing a phenomenal job on keeping the finger on the pulse, on making sure we're connecting with all of our students. With that being said, have there been some hiccups? Have there been some students who have not been able to, you know, their device is broken or they're still waiting for something? And teachers and principals are finding ways to really make sure that they're connected and that they're doing things. If there is an issue that arises, I want to just send out to the community the urge to use the IT help desk, you know, website or phone number. Let us know so that the technology department can be on it. And if that doesn't work, always reach out to the school district, the building principal's main office and let somebody know, and we'll be on it as soon as possible, because we do not want to have barriers there that are not allowing children to access with the curriculum.
Thank you, much appreciated.
But so far, so good.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions or comments from the board at this time? Well, thank you very, very much, Jen. We'll look forward to